got to fix that. If you're on YouTube, go find us after this, and you can subscribe to our YouTube feed. We'll use that for other things too, but right now we're simulcasting there. So let's set the biblical stage for this, because we're Christian. We follow Jesus, and our job here is we want to help you take the next step in your walk with Christ by talking about today's issues from a biblical perspective. So let's start with that biblical perspective. I could read you a whole bunch of passages about a word that makes people very uncomfortable today, but we'll pick one, and that word is justice. If I just say justice somewhere, people are going to immediately put a political label on me. They're going to put an ideological label on me that they don't know me. They don't know what they're talking about. You know what this is a word from this book. I love it. It's called the Bible.
Have you read that?
And if you want, it's good. It's really good. It's a bestseller actually. And if you want to put a label on me for talking about the word justice today, I'd like you to put the word on me of follower of Jesus. Because followers of Jesus are passionate about issues of justice. Not misapplied, but correctly applied. So, Jesus gave the 7 woes to the Pharisees in Matthew 23. And it was kind of like one of those, all right, Pharisees, sit down. Let me tell you what's wrong. It's like one of Len's lectures.
That's right.
New rule, sit down. And when you get to verse 23 and 24, he said, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give 1/10 of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you've neglected the more important matters of the law. Justice," he said it, not me, "justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guides, you strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel." And so clearly he's saying you're tithing. You give 1/10 of your spices. And that's good. Being a good Christian involves tithing, prayer, gathering for worship. Those are things that are good. You should do those, he said, but you're neglecting the more important matters, which are justice, mercy, and faithfulness. So this is my interpretation. He's saying, oh good, you tithe, that's great. If you're ignoring justice, you're missing it. You are straining out a gnat from a little strainer, and you just ate a camel in one bite. It's like you're totally missing this giant camel you just swallowed, which is you're missing justice. And so what I see this as is Jesus saying, fine, do those religious things, but you better also think about and be aware of and speak out about justice. The Bible could talk about, it talks all the time. I quote you verses about defending the oppressed, speak up for those who can't speak for themselves, all that stuff. But we don't have time for that in the context of this. Because today we got to talk about a really horrible, unjust situation. The murder. I've been saying death, and that's not even enough.
No, yeah.
The murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. I was born in Minneapolis, so my hometown in Minneapolis.
So, yeah.
And you've seen the stories, and I'll share it briefly here before we talk with you, family. I know you're showing up and saying stuff. Do we need to address anything yet?
Yeah, I want to say lots of people commenting. We love that you're here with us, guys. Miguel, I hope your back feels better. And do you have your cup? He says, hey, Brian, and Jannelle, good morning. I'm so sad and angered at this point. Once again, another innocent man dead. Deborah, she's back. She says, I'm back. I think,
hey.
Yeah. We live in a fallen world. There's nothing new under the sun. While we're here on earth, we still have to work to do. Our strength comes from Jesus. Hello, Matt, Isaac, Danella. We'll come back to your comments. And Nathan says, good morning. Miss Anita's here, so you better straighten up. Myrna's here, so you better watch what you say.
Myrna,
Rob is here. Super smart, Rob. I know you are very disturbed by what just happened. Dicha's here. He's your friend, right? Dicha? Okocha?
I'm sure. They're all my friends.
Oh, everybody.
So, here's the situation. And let me just say this in advance so it's very clear in advance so nobody can jump to any conclusions. Brian loves police. My wife, I got a great picture, I said on the air, of me wearing pleated khakis at her swearing-in ceremony, wearing her bulletproof vest, her uniform, her badge, her gun. She was a police officer, my father-in-law. I love my father-in-law. He had honorably served as a cop until his day of retirement. And it was fantastic. Brian, I got a good friend a couple doors down from me that's a police officer. I love him to tears. He's one of the most wonderful people on earth, and he protects and serves the people of this community, and I love it. Are we clear? Okay. I also am a guy that believes that whenever I see evil, I call it out.
That's right.
And so I believe I can in one moment say that a police officer yesterday in Minneapolis committed a heinous, evil crime, and in the same breath tell you I love the police. Do you see? That's nuance. And if only more police officers could do the same. For some reason, this is an unwritten rule in our society, that you are either for or against police. There's no middle ground.
And
I'm in the middle.
Am I wrong? You have police in your family. That
Yeah.
There's even some tribalism in the sense of like, it's the police, in this context, the police against anybody that disagrees versus we're a community, and if there's wrong, just like in any other industry or anywhere else, you call it out. There's no
Yeah.
tribe. There's no team.
No.
We're in this together, right?
Absolutely.
It's a community.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'd even go as far as to say that people like firefighters and police officers and paramedics, but primarily firefighters and police officers, and those in the military, risk their lives for us.
Yeah.
And deserve, like, if Christian radio host respect level is here, their respect level ought to be out here. Because they really are going out every day, and they might not make it
That's
home.
right.
And that's deserving of tons of respect.
That's right.
So I think I've bent over backwards on that far enough. Here's the story. So there's a man named George Floyd, made in the image of God, who the police on Monday received a call in Minneapolis, and they responded to a report of a forgery. Forgery. So they showed up. The report says that the individual, George Floyd, resisted arrest, but then we have video of what took place. This is from the USA Today, one of the best summaries I've seen. A video taken by a bystander circulating on social media shows Officer Derek Chauvin with his knee pressed against George Floyd's neck. By the way, I'm inserting here, with his hands in his pockets, and George Floyd handcuffed on the ground, while the man repeatedly says he can't breathe. Floyd repeatedly pleads with the officer, at one point crying out for his mother and saying, "Everything hurts." Two officers are featured prominently in the video, Chauvin and an officer who stands between bystanders and the officer on top of Floyd. Somebody off camera said, an officer goes, "He's talking. He's fine." People watching, "He ain't fine." So then the person said to the officer, "You're a bum and you're enjoying what's happening." And based on a knee and full weight on someone's neck and hands in pockets, that could be interpreted as having fun. Yeah. Sorry, but it could be interpreted that way. Not saying it is that way, but it could be interpreted that way. So the officer keeps his knee pressed into Floyd's neck, and eventually, after how many times he pleaded he can't breathe?
A dozen times. 12 times he says, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe."
And then included in there, pleading for his mother, asking for his mother. Eventually, he stops talking. About 4 minutes into the video, he becomes unresponsive. Bystanders approach the officer, and then he draws something, causing people off camera to say, "He's got mace, he's got mace." Bystanders repeatedly ask the officers to check for a pulse. The officer not only, he doesn't check for a pulse, he doesn't remove his knee from the man's neck until emergency medical services arrive and put an unresponsive George Floyd on a stretcher because he was dead. This is horrible. This is murder. Jesus says that when you pay attention to religious things, just like prayer and tithing, which are good, and you ignore justice, you're straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel. I won't be among those people. I'm not swallowing a camel. Jannelle's not. What about you? This is horrendous. Officers have since been fired, and there's an investigation pending. The attorneys in the situation are saying it's not enough. Of course it's not enough. It's murder.
Not enough.
It's murder on camera. And so I think it's very normal in Scripture even to cry out for justice.
So
I'm crying out
what
for it.
does that look like? Cry out for justice. How do we make it? I think a lot of times people feel helpless and feeling like, do we just say, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened"?
Say something. For crying out loud.
Say something how? Like how? On Facebook, on
social media.
Twitter?
Why wouldn't you on social media?
Is there more? They're police. Like what? You know, like
I want to see.
You said about training. You said something about training. No.
Yeah, no, I did. If I'm a cop, I'm not a cop. If I were a cop, I'd be one of the first ones in line going, listen, this is wrong. This is murder. There ought to be consequences for this kind of behavior. I do not support that kind of behavior. And maybe we all need some training here. If something epidemic was happening with Christian radio hosts, and I wasn't part of it, I'd still be a part of the training.
Doctors call each other out all day long. I've seen doctors lose their board, like on
Teachers.
documentaries. Yeah, they don't say, like, I don't get that. The code of, well, what some people interpret, I could be wrong, the code of silence. You don't see that in other industries. Matt says, how is it not enough if he's fired and being brought up on charges?
Matt,
what else is there to do?
Matt, he's not brought up on charges.
Yeah, no.
Not yet. He could be.
Just fired is what people are saying is not enough. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. I'm going to look up here. Somebody was saying, yes, getting fired is better than administrative leave, which I'm actually proud of Minneapolis. That's the city.
Yeah.
That they moved quickly. But they aren't the first to be fired and eventually hired by another precinct. As a cop, can you be rehired and keep working? Or
it depends, I think, on how, I don't know all the details. It depends on how you're let go, I think.
Angela says, this is the reason Colin Kaepernick took a peaceful knee years ago, and it wasn't against our country. It's several years later, and some still look away. Eva says, I saw this video last night and could not breathe. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest. I was so stunned by how intentional he was in his actions.
Yeah, it's stunning, wasn't it? And without the hands in the pockets, it's stunning, but the hands in the pockets.
Oh my gosh. Like, it was like another thing you're doing. Like, oh, to hear another
but it's
human.
A statement. Like, if I'm looking at you and I'm mad at you, and I really want to get you, and you're asking me to do something, I'm going to put my hands in my pockets and just look at you. I mean, the evil of this is despicable.
He had his handcuffs on and no gun ever. That's what, like, how people will ever excuse this. Matt says, okay, then wait for all the charges. It is less than 24 hours. The thing is, this isn't the first one. And that's where people, I don't know, I'll let you speak because I'm going to speak on emotion. So I don't want to do that.
I read the Psalms, and David pleaded out to the Lord. He said, Lord, break my enemy's teeth. He didn't say, oh, well, Lord, it's really hard right now. Bad things are happening, but I'm going to be patient. There's biblical precedent for us to be able to speak out and call out to God for justice onto evildoers. So no, I will not wait 24 hours. I love you, brother. I love you. But I will not wait 24 hours to call for more. Why would I? If David consistently can say, hurt my enemies when they do evil, but I trust in you, Lord, why can I not do the same? I think I can do the same and will. I think violence in response to this is completely unbiblical and incorrect. I think going and calling all police bad is also incorrect and unfair. But clearly calling out something for what it is in the moment and crying out for justice, I think is not only biblical, but it's necessary. Yeah. I love you, Matt. I'm glad you're here. But I strongly disagree with you on this.
Jennifer, my girl, and Theola's here. Hi, Theola. I love you. She says, Jennifer says, even if he was brought up on charges, it doesn't change the systemic issue that let him believe it was okay, and his partner, to stand by and then try to block the camera's view. There is a systemic issue. Byron says, preach, Brian, preach! Let's stop, because then he's going to think he's a preacher.
Yeah, it's not about me.
No, I'm just messing.
And Matt, I just happened to look up and see your comments. So I'm not singling you out, brother. I'm just seeing your comments and you're disagreeing, and I think disagreement's interesting. So that's why I'd bring it up here.
Miguel says, that's right, Brian. I'm so proud of you for this. Andre says, this happened on Monday over 24 hours ago.
Yeah. We just found out about it, though, as a larger society, I think, yesterday. So last night, yesterday afternoon, maybe, I forget exactly when. Yesterday.
Antoinette, I just want to visit you real quick, because your name is awesome and your hairstyle is amazing. I love it. You look awesome. Welcome. I haven't seen your name a lot. I think you've been here before, but I haven't seen your name a lot. She says, she's reacting, McHenry. There's lots to do, training, education, and changing policies to ensure this will never happen again. There's much work to be done, because it's more than George Floyd. It's more than, this is happening a lot, and we're only seeing the stuff that's actually caught on video. So I love that Antoinette's highlighting, well, first Jennifer saying it's systemic, and second, the need for training and education. Like, the fast reaction of the public is crying out, we gotta do something. Because what are we gonna do? That's what I feel like. Wait till another person's dead? You know, that's somebody's brother that's gone permanently, somebody's dad, somebody's cousin. So I appreciate the people that are like, we got to do something right now. Lisa is here. What's up?
Our friend, Pastor D'Angela Tanks, or First Lady D'Angela Tanks. Sorry, I shouldn't call her that in this context. She doesn't do that.
Oh.
No, First Lady. She didn't like that either. She posted a quote from Will Smith, which I thought was pretty interesting. Right. She said, racism isn't getting worse, it's just getting filmed.
It's true.
Sorry,
isn't that crazy?
But you know what this actually reminds me of? Like, you know, we do have some video of it, but isn't it like strikingly similar to the Edmund Pettus Bridge?
I don't know what that is.
So in Selma, the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma.
Yeah, Selma, yeah.
Those police officers with with vengeance.
Yes.
Hurting people for no reason with like bats that had barbed wire on them and billy clubs and
that's where the hoses happen, right?
I don't know if they had hoses on the other side of the bridge, but it was a horrible situation of violence. It feels like that.
Yeah.
And I want to say that doesn't happen anymore, but clearly it does. The difference is we're catching the little. I mean, we know about Edmund Pettus Bridge because the news press was there, the press was there, and cameras were there. But now we're seeing, because of cell phones, the little incidents where that happens. That before, all you get is a police report and go, well, you know, he resisted arrest. I guess he resisted real hard. You know?
Oh, that brings up another. Well, can I ask you a question though? All four of them are fired. If you were a cop there, if Sarah was there, what would she do? Like, I looked at the one that was standing by. I mean, is it just saying, oh, stop? Like,
she was angry about
that. It's intense. What do you do as the other cop?
She was angry about that. You stop them.
You can't get physical. Like, what do? Do they just say, yo, stop, I guess?
Yeah.
Would that have been enough? And if he doesn't stop, do you get physical with your other cop? With your other? Oh, okay.
I mean, this is me talking, but it's one of those where it's like, I talked before about there's an extra level of respect that police officers deserve for the risk they put on themselves. But I think there's an extra measure of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
When you're out there to enforce laws, you are held to a higher standard, and you should be. And that's a parallel principle to me in life. Pastors are held to a higher standard because they're in a position of authority to teach God's word, and so they should be held to a higher standard.
Teachers, in terms
yes.
of relationships they have or things they say. Myrna says she's reacting to Matt saying, I disagree. As a former officer of 15 years, I've spoke up to officers on scenes where things were not being done appropriately. You may not be popular in roll call, but you can say something, especially if you are the senior officer on scene.
And see, Myrna, you know what breaks my heart is that you'd have to say that you wouldn't be popular at roll call for calling out bad behavior. That is indicative of a systemic problem.
That's a problem.
Again, not all police are horrible, but I think when we see things like this, wouldn't it be healthy to reinforce training for those who already have it and know it, and train those who need it, and purge those who should be out?
Yeah.
Every profession does this.
Yeah.
Every profession does this.
Yeah. And the system, in terms of the systemic issue, I'm a person of color, but I hurt for my black men who when you see things like this, it just sets the wrong tone. That's why I love to hear Myrna, who's been a cop, calling it out. Because I want them to feel like when you see a cop, oh, there's safety or they're looking out for me. Like, that's what the cops are here for. They're community servants, you know? And that's the thing where if I was a cop, like, if I'm sure Sarah feels that. That's what she wants to be looked at by everyone in her community.
Oh, she was visibly angry yesterday. I brought it up, and she was visibly angry about it. And she had a friend in Minneapolis who also was a criminal justice major, a police officer. She was equally as outraged. She was posting the address and phone number for people to call the internal investigations and complain.
Wow. Angela says a knee in the back is different from a knee on the neck. The knee on the neck is like hands around the neck choking.
Yes, Sarah said when she was trained, you were trained especially for, like, for example, she said a female officer who's smaller than a big male to help subdue him to get his cuffs on. There's a knee to the center of the back, the upper back. That helps.
Oh, okay.
But that's to get the cuffs on. The man had cuffs on and he was on the ground.
Gosh. Somebody here is reacting. Isaac says, as a cop, you cannot watch another cop willfully harm a citizen and do nothing.
Yeah, you are held to another standard.
Todd says, two things that come to mind. Number one, bad cop doesn't make all cops bad.
Yeah.
However, which we agree, yes. However, one man's sin has set the mold for all of us, and we all need forgiveness. The systemic change that is needed is called revival, and our nation needs it desperately.
I agree that our nation needs revival, but I think it's also okay for us in the same breath to say that perhaps we also need some dramatic reimagination of policing.
I think
to protect officers and to protect citizens.
Yeah.
To protect great officers from bad accusations, from doing their jobs appropriately, and to hold officers accountable who are doing it wrong.
Absolutely. Rashad, first of all, Rashad, I haven't seen your name, Rashad Tyson. Both your names are awesome. So I visited you on Facebook. Your girl's hair, I'm like going to show my daughter. I love it. And it's like, it reminds me of my daughter, Raina. They love big hair, curly hair. So let's go to your comment. He says, as a believer, we need to bridge the gap. Go back 10 days in your text thread or call log, and if half of your contacts is not the other race, how can we say we're making a change? You're not even talking to the other race. Learn about your brothers and sisters. Stand with them, knowing them, not just because, but because you know them and have a relationship with them. This speaks a little bit to your history in Southside Chicago, I think, in terms of the issues were more personal, because you said issues that I knew were going on were now happening to my friends.
Yeah, it changed. It's sad and it's true, but before I lived on the south side of Chicago in a black community, which, by the way, it's a longer story for another day. I didn't do this and then some sort of awkward project. Quite frankly, I was working in ministry, and it was a beautiful neighborhood, and it was the only one I could afford. A single family home for my family, so we just went there for that reason. It was selfish. I kind of thought racism was a thing, but I was kind of like, I don't know, it's not that bad. But when it started happening to people I love and I trust, I was forced to see it for what it is. And I became passionate about it because God chose for me to do that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me better than anybody else, but I got to tell you, it breaks my heart for certain.
How do you do what Rashad says without making people a project? In terms of making sure you have people of color that are friends with you.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You can read books. You can, I don't know,
Yeah.
follow people on social media.
Yeah, I like that.
But I mean, if you're really interested in getting to know other people's pain, the only thing you can do is get to know them and love them. Maybe change churches. Be a part of a community organization in a neighborhood that's not your own. It's not that complicated.
So, Matt says, in terms of Myrna saying you can speak up, I agree. Normally you can say something, but in this situation, the other officers had to protect each other. I'm saying the officer on the ground is wrong, so he does agree with us that it's wrong. When a situation gets completely out of control, all officers are hurt, regardless of their stand on the issue.
Well, yeah.
Catherine, she says, amen, amen. Let me see. If you see Byron, let me know. Denise says, yes, Brian, you are right. There are consequences to your actions. Hold them responsible. Lydia says, one way the systemic issue is expressed is when people say Black Lives Matter and people respond, all lives matter. Given the racism against blacks here, we are not discussing all lives. Valerie, hi girl. She says, also, I understand that not all cops are racist, but where are we getting these stats that maybe less than 1% or any minimum are bad? There were 4 out of how many within that precinct that were fired? The average person of color will tell you otherwise. I don't have stats. My point is the minority of police are racist. The minority, and we got to make sure that we understand that while we fix it and cry out an injustice. I think the bigger issue with those other cops is silence. It's non-action. And I don't, maybe I'll get in trouble when I say this, but Brian, just to give them the benefit of the doubt, do you think you could be a good cop and see that and just not know what to do? It's fast. I don't know, like, just put yourself in their shoes. I'm just saying, maybe 1 out of the 3 could have just been like, I didn't know what to do. I don't know.
Sure, and I think there's also a culture of, like, there's a culture that I think needs to change in policing where it's you're with us or against us.
Yeah.
When you're behind the blue wall.
Which is bad.
And that's unhealthy and it's unsafe for everybody. But I understand Valerie's point. We don't have any statistics to speak of. But I think here's what we can say clearly, and I saw Dr. Rydelnik is here with us. Good to see you, Doc. His point is a really good one, that we have to be very careful, I think, as Christians, when we see injustice, to not extrapolate it onto people who are not perpetrating injustice. As in, it's unhealthy and unwise for us to say all cops or most cops, or it's difficult without any hard facts to even put any sort of number on it. What we can say, though, is that there are lots of great police officers who protect us and serve us. I love seeing those stories about cops who come upon someone charged with shoplifting or accused of shoplifting, realize they're just desperately poor and hungry, and they buy them groceries.
Oh, yeah.
I know those stories touch my heart. Or cops who put themselves in harm's way to rescue people and save people, or they become, often they're saving lives and delivering babies. This is fabulous stuff. And they deserve our praise and our respect for what they do. And there are also police officers like this guy who killed somebody Monday. And that's wrong, and it ought to be called wrong, and there ought to be consequence for it. And we ought to be able to easily hold both, as Dr. Rydelnik called it, a nuanced position. It's not contradictory for me to say there are great cops and there are bad cops, and the bad cops should be held accountable. Like that's not a contradictory belief.
But can you understand, as people of color, how we can't afford, especially black men, to just be like, oh, most of them are nice. Like every traffic stop for a black man, like, is big compared to you. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna be good, because most of them, it's the minority, and that's a problem because of what several have said in terms of it's systemic. Even if it's the fact that the system is supporting or being quiet to what the minority is doing, that's a problem, which is why we should speak up.
Yeah, I mean, I feel comfortable saying that in any department where the culture is, if you see something that's wrong or illegal, don't say anything because cops don't rat each other out. Like, if that's the culture in a department, that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Especially, again, because I think they're held to a higher standard, and they should be. And also be deserving of greater respect when they're doing a great job. So, yeah, and I think there's also a long history throughout, in particular, the lifetimes of your family members in recent memory in the civil rights movement of major mistrust between police and African Americans in particular. Yeah. And that's a difficult wound to heal. It's not healed yet.
And this isn't helping.
And significant effort needs to be made to heal that mistrust.
Yeah. Yes.
Ayanda. Oh. Yeah. Ayanda Kamala, TK.
Hey guys, America needs an intervention on so many things. We can't keep critiquing other countries on human rights. Amen. Human rights issues and other things. Yet videos like this keep popping. Forget the other situations, not videos taped.
Yeah.
The church needs to step up and provide action steps to repentance, biblical practical change, unity, and prayer.
Yeah.
Alicia agrees with Ayanda. Andre, when you're black, having an interaction with the cops is Russian roulette. I wish I could disagree with you. I wish, but like the difference could be somebody's life. And so every moment you got to take it like differently, and that's not cool. It's not fair.
So what do you say to the person who goes, well, come on, Jannelle, I've been pulled over and I wasn't scared?
Not to the all black cops person that tells me that?
No, to like me. I've been pulled over and I wasn't threatened. If you just do what they ask you to do, Jannelle, you follow the rules, you'll be fine.
I think listen to other people's stories. Talk to other people.
Watch this video.
Yeah, watch the video, exactly. Now, mind you, I have had awesome interactions with police, so I get it. I am especially talking about black men and just saying, listen to people. Listen to people's stories. Antoinette, in talking about what could be done to minimize these types of scenarios, mental health assessments should be done continuously, not just at hiring. Wow, great point. Cops are humans too, and I can only imagine what they experience on a day-to-day basis. As a department, how they're coping, their mental status should be evaluated routinely. For me, seeing what happened to him was heartbreaking and hard to take in. So what was this man's mental state that he could do such an act and not have any form of compassion and or emotion? And then she goes on to say, I don't believe anyone is trying to make this into a race thing, but the reality is that within the last month, maybe month and a half, there has been continuous scenarios involving black individuals being murdered at the hand of the law and or those closely connected to the law. That's our reality. We didn't ask for it. We're dealing with it. Sandy, It hurts my heart to know that so many people live in fear just because of how they were born. Patricia, I like how you spell your name, Patricia, says the nightmare of that mother hearing her son calling her name, a nightmare she will live with daily.
Yeah, what a situation, Oh, look at your Facebook stalking.
Yeah, Patricia, are those your daughters? Your name is like awesome. Love your Facebook page. And your daughters, I think, or sisters, they pretty much look like your sisters. You're super young. Miguel, I too have great friends in the force, but this is a race issue, bottom line.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore. Man. It's hard to ignore the consistent drip,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, but...
And the treatment of lives as if they were disposable. I wish we had time to sit and just talk about George Floyd. But then here comes something else later. It's like, dude, that will permanently change a family. Those are dreams gone, plans gone. Yeah. Renee says, stop making excuses for cops not holding their co-workers accountable for their actions. If those other cops had stepped in and even pulled him off, Mr. Floyd would be alive.
Yeah, I don't think she's talking to us because we're certainly not making excuses.
Yeah.
They could have easily stepped in. I still... Like, oddly enough, my prayer in this is a rediscovery of nuance. It's one of my little pet issues. Dr. Rydelnik mentioned it, if he's still here, earlier today. We've just forgotten about nuance.
Yeah.
We've forgotten that you can hold two positions at once that might seem contradictory, but aren't. They're honest. They're true. You don't have to say, like, if you condemn this action as evil and murder, it doesn't mean that you hate police. Like, you can hold both.
Yeah.
Separately. You can say, I love police and hate the situation. Yeah. This guy was wrong and should be punished. And police are okay. And I want them and I need them in my life.
Daniela, I wish we had an answer. She said, it hurts my heart. I don't know how to answer my son's question. Mom, why? Gosh.
Because of sin. Because of sin. This is what sin looks like. And we call it out for what it is.
Yeah, but... Jannelle, let me look at her. It's difficult when it's personal. Like, I can see when you got to do the talk with your son or you got to explain whatever. Like, I don't know. Colleen says, I totally agree with continual mental health training along with anger management being required for law enforcement. Thank you for talking about this. It's so important as Christians that we talk about this, and more importantly, be the hands and feet of Jesus in this world.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what I like about those messages too that Colleen's talking about and others. I forget the person's name. Forgive me, who brought it up first, but there's actually a measure of compassion involved in someone saying we need to step up. It's not just training and regulation for police, but it's step up care for police.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Because it's a stressful job where
It
perhaps
is.
if we had more mental health intervention,
Lots of PTSD, I
maybe
bet.
better benefits,
Yes.
maybe something where we can be sure they're cared for, more time off, whatever it is,
Yeah,
to be sure that they're not in a situation where their emotions can get the best of them.
yeah.
I think that's a compassionate response.
Thank you, Jannelle. I didn't even know how to express it. I get you, girl. She says, right, it's personal and ongoing. My husband, his father, is a cop. That's the thing. For me to talk to my son through these issues, and for him, it's almost a question of what's wrong with me? Like, why me? You know, there are comments that my sons have had to hear recently that they're like, yo, like, that's not even me. Oh,
How did,
gosh.
have you had a chance to talk with Len about this much? And
This
you don't have
one?
to share that if you...
He because it got public very quickly. And I was taking a nap or laying down, and he texted me and sent me the link and was like, why? And I'm like, I just saw the link and just why? And then he goes, why are we being killed? Like, it's like every week. And he's at work. And Len is he's a guy, so you know how guys are one track mind. And then he expressed some, like, comments he had to hear, and it's that question. You see a girl, you hear from a teen all the way to a man, like, why? And it's personal. And if you don't get that it's personal because you're thinking, well, this is in Minneapolis, I wish I had the words, but it's personal and I'm seeing it. And I want to make it not personal because I see my son and there's nothing wrong with my son. There's nothing wrong with my husband. That's what all of us across the country feel. There are no answers, and why us, and I don't know.
I like Isaac's comment there, just a little bit above there.
Isaac, why do we as a society require that you stand on one side or the other? I stand on God's side, and as Brian said, he is against harming the innocent.
Yeah, life is actually, I've found, a little bit more relaxing when I just go, you know what, my conscience, as Luther said, my conscience is captive to the Word of God.
Yeah.
And if that makes me sound like I'm leaning right or leaning left, I could care less
Yeah.
which way it makes me sound. If I'm following Christ, my heart's peaceful.
Roy Patterson is with us. Gabe is with us. She says she's so upset. And Roy says, Regina, good morning, girl. Roy Patterson says, sad, scary, racist, and inexcusable.
Roy Patterson, good to see you, my friend. Cleveland
Molly, I love your heart for racial justice. Molly says, yes, Jannelle, I agree it's different when you're thinking about how you will explain this to your African-American sons. It is so personal. It is personal, and it shouldn't be. It's disturbing.
Yeah. So, you know, we gotta run.
We do.
We've been going long here, and
Yo, we've been live on YouTube. I see like 3 people are live now, so that means you're not. So next time, you know. So now that we're checking off, I just interrupted you. I just want to make sure we get this said. Go to YouTube. You got like 2 minutes after we're done. Go to YouTube and follow us. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe. Share with people because we got treats coming for people that subscribe. So, you know, make sure. I'm going to put the link up now. Go ahead, Brian.
But yeah, it's hard to know what to say sometimes, but something you can do today is be clear about God's view of justice and call out injustice when it happens.
That's
I
right.
think that's easy. And call out people who don't allow nuance.
Can you unpack that just a little bit?
Yeah. If you say this was wrong and evil and may God's justice be done, and someone goes, wow, you hate cops. Go, no, that's not true. I believe in a nuanced view of life through the lens of Scripture. Like, we need to be able to stop people from polarizing extremes that don't need to exist.
Yes.
Just my 2 cents.
We love you guys. Love that we get to lament.